saa nyingine tunakazana, naacha baba wife naenda shughuli kidogo.
Changamoto anazopitia kuiandalia familia ni zipi? Haya ni makala ya Mwanaume Ni. Basi kwa uhondo kamili ungana nami Simba Kiage kwenye makala ya Mwanaume Ni kila siku ya Alhamisi kwenye runinga ya Lookup.
So we've gone through an election process. If you do remember, everybody was looking at 2022. And I'm saying everybody as regards our markets. There was a conversation of how majority of foreign investors had taken a net selling position just towards the general election. Because if you go back to that Monday, immediately after the elections, there was almost 763 million that was taken out of the Kenyan economy. That is in terms of wealth, because the majority of the foreign investors were a bit jittery of how the elections were going to go down. Put that on the side. And just on the eve then of the announcement of the results, we did see what the U.S. Embassy did, that communique of exactly how they were not sure how things were going to go down. That also sent a negative sentiment in the market. And not so much, because then you will say we had our lessons from 2017 to date, where we are right now, where it's not the very first time, but we're talking about an election facing nullification. We went to the courts, we came out of it. Both sides said they were going to respect what the courts were going to announce, and that sort of sent a positive sentiment in the market. Now, we open today by going back to Tuesday, where the stock market gained 102.6 billion shillings on Tuesday, and that's a lot in terms of investor wealth. Now, I'm saying that's a lot because if you go back to when the market experienced this type of gain, you have to go back to 4.5 years ago. In fact, that was back in 2018. That's when a single day of trading saw us gain 102.6 billion shillings. Now, what was going on in March 28th, 2018, when this was going on? This is after the so-famed handshake in the country. You will see then how these two political events really married each other all the way to 2022. Now, if you go back to 2017, we did see the market crash. But again, in 2022, the nullification or the Supreme Court proceedings did not really do so much. Because then again, we have picked our lessons from 2017. Now let's talk about how we closed. We did close with a market cap of 2.295 trillion, up from 2.192 trillion Monday. So you will see that then the NSE 20 did gain a lot. That's 1,807 points. That's a lot of points if you look at exactly where we were closing by. And if you go back to yesterday's trading, you will say that if you go back to yesterday, you will see that majority of these gains indeed were from the volumes that were traded yesterday. We'll talk about 80 billion in trading. And if you go back to Safaricom's trading again, it added 40 billion shillings to its valuation. Wow, that's huge. That's really huge. That's a better way to start then. As we wait the swearing in into office of the president-elect, William Ruto, the markets have liked what's going on in the country. My name is Simba Kiage. This is Lookup Business. Join us online on Lookup TV across all your social media platforms. It begins right now. The insurance industry in Kenya continued to post mixed performance amid negative environment headlined by high inflation and weakening shilling. Investment income from securities at the NSA received a huge blow as investors adopted a wait-and-see approach, as some took a net selling position as the country went through the elections mode. Rishpa Wambui with the analysis of the hot and cold half-year results for the Kenyan insurers.
Insurance firms have not posted a homogeneous result, which is an indication that the environment was not favorable to all of them for the first 6 months of 2022. CIC Insurance posted a net profit rise to 376.4 million shillings, representing a 45% increase in the results of the half-year 2022, although seeing claims rise by 1.9%. Jubilee Insurance also posted a profit for their 6 months of 2022, hitting at 3.4 million shillings, which was a decline from the 4.5 million shillings it recorded under the same period a year earlier. Closing on the profit quarter was Liberty, who posted a 1.6 million shillings net profit for the period under review, down from 265.1 million shillings that was recorded an year earlier, although their income declined by 99.1% on the back of increased claims. It has not been an easy rise, however, for the rest of the listed and non-listed insurance, as majority of them have struggled to make profit in the current environment. Sanlam PLC was the first victim of the tricky operating environment that saw the insurer record a loss before tax of 2.8 million shillings as a result of reduced investment income from the equities market. Unlisted firm Old Mutual has also struggled to navigate the environment for the first 6 months of 2022, as they recorded a loss of 375 million shillings from 522 million shillings recorded in the preceding period. Britam has yet to release their half-year result for the period ended June 2022, but it will be a matter to be seen if they will continue with their profit position trend from 2021, where they recorded 72 million shillings in profit for the year. For now, insurance companies continue to post independent results that show little to the effects of the current environment on their businesses. As for the banks, they continue to show a homogeneous result that speak heavily to the harmony in the industry. Edwin John Mukora, Lookup Business.
Sorry, that is John Edwin Mukora. Now, Kenya's incoming president will have to wait for parliamentary approval for any borrowing after the 12th parliament passed into law starting orders that will guide the cash office on debt limits for each financial year. Uhuru Kenyatta's government has been blamed for being debt hungry that saw the outgoing president drive the country's debt to 8.6 trillion shillings, which put the country at the risk of default.
The 12th Parliament approved Kenya's debt ceiling to be increased to 10 trillion shillings from 9 trillion shillings that was set in 2019, as Uhuru Kenyatta rushed to deliver on his legacy project before stepping out of power. The incoming president will not, however, have his way easy, as the same Parliament passed into law standing orders for the National House that will see Parliament approve Kenya's debt ceiling before giving the go-ahead for Treasury to come up with a budget policy statement. This follows constant concern on an ever-rising debt ceiling for Kenya that has been revised twice in an year to the current 10 trillion shillings, with the current debt projected to hit 9.5 trillion shillings by the end of June 2022, leaving the country with just 500 million shillings to touch the current ceiling. The incoming president will have to find ways of navigating the tough condition set by the House to get money to fund their manifesto and key projects. The 13th Parliament will have to try to contain the ballooning debt situation in the country. Whether the discussion of capping the budget at 55% of the GDP will resurface again is still a matter to be seen. For now, the hope for the incoming president is that he will have majority in both houses so as to have flexibility in getting the money to spend on their projects. Edwin John Mukora, Lookup Business.
And the new president-elect Dr. William Ruto already has his work cut out for him as he walks into an economy already struggling with the highest cost of living in recent history. With his manifesto promising to make a living bearable for Kenyans within the first 100 days, it has to tackle the food basket first as it takes office when it is at that record 72 months high. We look into what it has to target if it will indeed find a solution to the cost of living challenge that is pushing majority of Kenyans to the wall. As the new president-elect Dr. William Ruto awaits his swearing in on the 13th of this month, his work is already cut out for him. He walks into an economy that needs immediate fixing. On the back of his promises is the cost of living and especially food. Ruto has to find a way of fixing the cost of maize flour prices that increased by 4.7% per kilo a packet following a 2.6% per kilo increase in prices of maize grain. Rice, considered an alternative food to ugali to majority of Kenyans, also experienced a 2.9% increase for 1 kg of non-aromatic brands, which in turn saw the price of a 2 kg packet of rice retail at around 450 shillings to 500 shillings. The 8.5% inflation was also heavily occasioned by an increase in prices of potatoes, onions, carrots, with a KNBS report indicating that a rise of 0.9%, 2.4% and 6.4% respectively across the commodities. The price of a kilo of mangoes across major supermarkets increased by 4.1%. That saw the commodity sell at 120 shillings and 140 shillings. Apart from these basic food items, KNBS highlighted non-food items whose prices increased in the same period under review, with fuel prices also on a historic high, including soaps and detergents whose prices increased by 1.5% per 800 grams and 0.7% at 500 grams respectively. In July 2022, KNBS report indicated that food prices plunged to a high of 15.3% compared to 13.8% in the previous month. It is more bleak times ahead for Kenyans are hoping to gather a reprieve at their dinner tables after Tanzania stopped issuing new maize export permits. Now, this latest move could further worsen the maize situation in the country after Kenya struggled to pull out of the current shortage that has driven prices of flour to historic highs. Analysts are now forecasting a biting shortage of the commodity as Tanzania has for the last 2 years become a key source market for Kenya to bridge deficits, especially after the two countries mended their trade ties with a change of regime last year following the death of former President John Pombe Magufuli. Data from the Eastern Africa Rain Council shows imports from Tanzania nearly grew fivefold last year to 469,474 tons from 98,000 tons in 2020. The development has left processors jostling for stocks that are available locally and a few imports coming in from Zambia. Tanzania restricts exports to protect its local stock following poor harvests. Farmers in Nakuru are counting thousands in losses after troops of monkeys descended on their maize farms, destroying their crops. The farmers decry the unfortunate human-animal conflict that has so far drawn no response from the relevant authorities, and now contemplate putting a stop to their farming activities to avoid the never-ending losses that they are incurring. They are calling on the Kenya Wildlife Services, KWS, to come to their rescue or else their families will starve.
Hata sisi ikikutana na mama amebeba kiodo inamunyang'anya na inakula ile kitu iko hapo ndani. Sasa tufanye nini serikali? Ikiwa hata ile kitu nijitafutia inaninyang'anya, sisi ni wanani? Kwa hivyo mkuja muangalie na mjue vile tutaishi. Kwa sababu nugu inaonekana ni mzuri kuliko binadamu.
Tunalia sababu ya njaa kwa mahindi, kwa nyani sinakoa zaidi katika area hii. Sasa tunalia sababu ile vitu yote tumepanda kwa bei, kwa kufiga dawa hiyo mimea yote kwa bei iko juu sana. Sasa tunalia serikali tusaidie.
Sasa hii nugu inatusumbua sana, hata ukijaribu kuweka kuku inaenda na nugu. Ukijaribu kuenda kupanda chakula yoyote nugu inachukua. Sasa tunasangaa na tunalia kwa serikali tukufu ituhurumie ni kuje mashindani hapa.
Kwa hivyo tunaomba serikali iingilie kwa kuwa tumeshafuna mahindi ikiwa bichi na bado hiyo mahindi hakuna, ni mafeve tupu, ingalau mtu aone Kenya ataona ndio juja iko. Ikiingia kwa viazi inatoa viazi hata ijatoa maua inamaliza. Ikiingia kwa maharagwe yenye tumerudisha hapo kwa hiyo shamba imesha yote kung'oa na kukula na kumaliza. Tukiingia kama ni viazi, tukiingia ni kitunguu tumepanda, tukiingia ni madisi, tukiingia ni sukuma, kila kitu ni mchanga tupu. Kwa hivyo imetusumbua, imetuweza. Diposa tunaomba usaidizi kwa serikali.
Well, on that note, let's take a look at exactly how the markets opened this morning on back of that proper trading that we did experience on Tuesday. Let me just take you back to how it closed yesterday before we get to look at the major indicators. We've already seen how the market gained 102.6 billion. That is yesterday's trading. And the last time that the market met such a gains were from 2018, and that was on March 28th. Again, when we did see the handshake take place on March 9th, 2018. So if you go back to this particular trading that we saw yesterday, then you will talk about the biggest contributors to that. We did see how Safaricom was able to add 40 billion to its valuation. And if you go back then, you will see how it closed at 31 shillings and 0.5 of a cent. That's not exactly where it needs to be, but it will show you exactly how it has jumped then as the country sort of went through a peaceful election period. All right, let's go back then and talk about this biggest indicators, and we're going to go back to the biggest gainers. Indeed, what we do expect that Safaricom is also going to feature into that. Let's look at that data right now as well. Indeed, on that, we're going to see how Uchumi again is on our list. CAIC, despite the results that they did post and that half-year the period, you will see that indeed they've come up to that. Then you will talk about CIC and Uchumi. Not so much of a change in that as well, because we're talking about them closing at 2 shillings and 19 cents, and Uchumi really closing at a 27 cents. Shows you exactly how those that particular stock has been trading on a low pointage, going by the fact that you can actually get a share at just 27 cents, despite it being among the biggest gainers. All right, let's cross over, yes, into the biggest losers, isn't it? All right, so we see exactly who was unfortunate yesterday when every other person was talking about proper trading yesterday. On this, interestingly, we don't have Portland Cement again coming to this. Unga Limited as well. And I will tell you why Unga Limited is coming here. It's because of the news that we're getting from Tanzania. Now, Tanzania is saying indeed that they are not going to issue export permits into the country. By the way, here's how they get it. You apply for them on a daily basis. Anytime you want to then import maize from Tanzania, and we do know how much they've been quite instrumental for the millers in the country, you apply for a permit, and now the fact that they're closing that particular one shows you exactly why Unga is coming now at a negative 10% change. That's huge as well. Portland Cement again is coming in on that at 6 shillings and 96 cents, again dropping 9.61%. Kakuzi as well is coming in that. You can actually now get it at 368 shillings. That is 7% change, almost 8%, and BOC is coming into this. Also, not so much of a surprise, despite the good results that we did see during the half year. They're now giving us that particular drop of 3.75% change. Again, if you see the biggest change from 10% to 3.57%, giving you almost 6.25% as a difference, it shows you that even as we are talking about good gains in the market, there were those who were really unfortunate posting this kind of results that we've seen here. Good. Let's close that indicator by moving into the top movers as of trading yesterday. This is exactly how they are opening, and we'll see Safaricom. Look at that. We see that. Wow, 7 million shares traded. That's a big difference. Because, by the way, if you confirm these numbers as well, looking at exactly what Safaricom gave you, they were able to add 40 billion shillings into their valuation. Talk about taking everything. Because if you again go back and look at that result from yesterday, they added 80 billion, sorry, actually not 40 billion, 80 billion into its valuation. Wow. Oof. And if you saw that again, they're talking about a 2 shillings gain per share. That's from 29 to 31. That's why Safaricom is leading at 7.3 million in terms of volumes. We do have KPLC, not so bad as well, coming in at 1.8, almost 2 million shares traded. Kengen is coming in at 941,200 in terms of volume. NCBA 678,700. And indeed, when you look at this, the big boys you'd expect to be here in terms of trading, the likes of equity, the likes of cooperative, the likes of KCB, they are not there, showing you that indeed majority of the trading really concentrated on that particular stock, Safaricom. Oof. Anyway, we're going to see whether this indeed goes on, and we're going to interrogate the market as we look forward to this week's trading, so we can see whether this was just a momental jump, or indeed this is what we're going to expect from Safaricom as we go on this week in terms of our trading. That is your market outlook. As well, we take a short break. Once we come back, let's talk about other developments in different sectors of the economy. By the way, when we're talking about the positive sentiment that we've shown of or driven into the market by these peaceful elections, some companies are launching in the country at this time. When we're talking about a subdued economy outlook going by the elections we've just had, once we come back, I'll be taking you back to a conversation we had with Steel, a company based in Germany that is now seen it proper to come into the country at this time. More of that to follow next. Remember, you can be a part of this conversation at Lookup TV across all your social media platforms. I am Kiage Simba.
Get a chance to wake up as a tourist as you view Mount Kenya every day by buying a plot of land at Wema Gardens, Naru Moru at only 4